Welcome to the Wellness Protocol, your source for guidance on metabolic health, hormones, and longevity. I'm Dr. Alessia Roehnelt, double board certified endocrinologist, and on each episode, I'll share simple tools rooted in science and experience to help you feel better, live longer, and take control of your health. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Wellness Protocol. I'm your host, Dr. Alessia Roehnelt, double board certified endocrinologist who is passionate about helping you optimize your health with evidence-based holistic strategies. Today, we are diving into a very hotly debated topic in the nutrition and wellness world, and I'm talking about seed oils. You've probably seen a bunch of posts about how seed oils are very pro-inflammatory, they're causing chronic health conditions, but I'm sure you've also seen the flip side of it, that many people defend seed oils and say that they're very healthy for you. So today we are going to break down what seed oils actually are, why they've become so controversial, what the real science says about inflammation, metabolism, and heart health, and whether you need to go searching through your pantry and throw out everything you have that has a seed oil on it or not. So let's start with the basics. What are seed oils? Seed oils are vegetable oils that are extracted from the seeds of plants. They are usually mechanically pressed or chemically extracted. Some of the most common seed oils include things like soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, cottonseed oil, canola oil, which actually comes from rapeseed, and grapeseed oil. They are widely used in cooking, in food manufacturing, restaurants. The main reason is they're very inexpensive and very shelf stable. They're also very neutral in flavor, so they can easily be added to something and you don't even know that they're there. Now, from a nutritional standpoint, most seed oils are high in omega-6 polyunsaturated acids, especially linoleic acid. The first claim is that omega-6 fatty acids are pro-inflammatory in the body. Now, that's not entirely wrong, but it's not the full picture either. The idea is that you need some omega-6 fatty acids for brain function. You need them for skin health and immune regulation. The problem is if you have a high ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, for instance, like 20-1 or more. If you have a very high amount of these omega-6s in your diet, that's where it's going to really tip the scale towards a more pro-inflammatory state. That being said, clinical trials haven't shown that omega-6 consumption alone drives chronic inflammation when total diet is considered there. Now, I think the main problem here is that the American diet does not contain enough naturally occurring omega-3 fatty acids. These would be things like fish, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, nuts, seeds like flaxseed, chia seed. These are foods that are very high in omega-3s. And if you eat a lot of these foods, yes, of course, you're going to have a very high amount of omega-3s in your diet. And therefore, adding in a little bit of seed oils is not going to make a big inflammatory reaction. However, most people, unfortunately, don't get those kinds of foods on a regular basis. I can say just as a mom, it is really difficult to get my kids to eat fish. Number one of them is allergic to it, so it makes it difficult to make fish for dinner. The other ones don't like the texture, they don't want to try it. So at this point with young kids, they're certainly not getting enough fish in their diet. Then if you look at things like adding in nuts, one of my kids has a nut allergy. So we don't keep that many nuts in the house, and we have to be very careful about using nuts. So there are limitations on eating these foods, even when you have good intentions. And some people just don't like these foods. A lot of people do not like the texture of fish. Maybe they have certain dietary limitations where they're vegan, they're not eating these types of products like fish. Or maybe people are just not interested in incorporating that kind of food into their diet. And so if you have someone that is not getting this good source of omega-3s, but they are getting a high amount of omega-6s, like in processed foods, that is when you are going to trigger this more pro-inflammatory state in the body. But if you just took omega-6s alone in isolation, there actually have been some studies to show that they might even reduce inflammation. So a meta-analysis in the Journal of Circulation actually found that increasing linoleic acid, again, that is omega-6s, by increasing linoleic acid, they saw a reduced inflammatory marker as well as improved cardiovascular health when replacing saturated fat. The nuance here is that omega-6s by themselves are not actually that bad. But in our modern diets or American diets, we are drowning in them and we're not getting enough of the omega-3s. So for most people, cutting back on these seed oils can benefit their overall health. Seed oils are also very highly processed. So most of these commercially available seed oils will go through a high heat process or a chemical solvent, usually with hexane, and then some sort of bleaching process. Now, this whole process can damage the fats. It can lead to oxidation, especially if the oils are exposed to high heat, even during cooking if they're exposed to high heat. And oxidized fats can create byproducts like aldehydes or lipid peroxides, which in high amounts can actually damage DNA and promote more inflammation. This really is especially true when you're thinking about fried fast food, where the oils are used repeatedly. And this oil is usually a seed oil because, again, seed oils don't have a very strong flavor associated with them. So they're perfect for making things like French fries and chicken nuggets. But when you have a vat of oil that's just sitting there constantly being heated, these oxidized seed oils could potentially pose risks. And that's another place where you really should take caution. One question I get a lot is, do seed oils cause obesity or do they cause metabolic disease? There's been a lot of correlation, but not necessarily causation here. So again, seed oils really started to be consumed at the same time that the rates of obesity and chronic disease in the US started to rise. That doesn't necessarily mean that seed oils caused obesity, but again, keep in mind that seed oils are used in products that need a good shelf life, in products where you're trying to cut down the cost, in products where you don't want it to have this strong flavor of an oil. So if you think about many ultra processed foods, they're going to contain seed oils, but they're also going to contain a lot of other additives that aren't good for us, like sugar and starches and emulsifiers and artificial flavors. So in controlled studies that isolate just the seed oils, they really have not shown to directly cause insulin resistance or fatty liver or weight gain if consumed in normal amounts with a high omega-3 diet. But again, these products are found in a lot of processed foods. So if somebody has a diet very high in processed food, this same statement is not going to be true. But a lot of people will make the case for seed oils. Number one, multiple large studies have actually shown that if you replace saturated fats like butter and coconut oil with these polyunsaturated fatty acids from seed oils, we actually see a decrease in LDL, which is linked to a reduced risk of heart disease. They are also quite affordable. As I said, they're very inexpensive. They're plant-based, so for people with dietary limitations that don't eat meat and don't eat dairy and things like that, they are very useful. They're just very accessible and versatile. Not everybody can afford extra virgin olive oil that's cold pressed or avocado oil in large amounts. So for some people, this is just reality that they have more access to these seed oils. And as we said before, they're not inherently inflammatory. If they are consumed in smaller amounts as part of a whole food diet where you're eating enough omega-3s, seed oils don't appear to increase markers of systemic inflammation. But again, the issue is, how are they being used? Because if they're being used in deep frying, if they're being reused If they are hidden in processed foods, this is where you start to really run into some issues. So let's talk about a few very common myths about seed oils. Number one, I've heard that seed oils are banned in Europe. Actually, that statement is false. They're widely used in Europe, and there is no ban on canola oil or sunflower oil in Europe at this time. Another common myth that I hear is that they cause cancer. There is no direct evidence that fresh seed oils cause cancer. However, again, repeatedly heating these products, reused oils, frying oils, this oxidizes the product and can create carcinogenic or cancer-causing compounds. But that's about the cooking method and how they're used, not the actual oil itself. Another common myth is they are the reason everybody is sick. There is not one single food that is the cause of chronic disease. It really is about patterns. If someone is eating a lot of high sugar items, they're not getting enough fiber, they're chronically stressed, they eat everything out of a package, nothing is grown from the earth, they're not getting enough sleep, they're not moving, they're not exercising, they have a diet just totally consisting of ultra processed foods, including, but not only seed oils, it will compromise their health. And another myth is that you need to eliminate seed oils entirely. Now, there is no need to avoid these 100% of the time, but I do think reducing them and understanding what is a safer way to eat them is very important. So again, if you are eating them cold, lightly heated, not as pro-inflammatory. If you are using them in conjunction with a diet that's very high in omega-3s, not really a problem. But when you are only consuming these kinds of foods with seed oils, or when you are eating a lot of fried foods in high heat situations, that is when you really need to consider cutting back on these types of foods. So if you want to take a more balanced and practical approach, here's what I would recommend. Number one, try to minimize your ultra-processed foods. Most of the seed oils that we consume aren't from what we cook. They're from packaged snacks or sauces or frozen foods or fast foods. Focus on cutting back on those. Not only are you going to be reducing how many seed oils you're eating, you're also going to be reducing a lot of other junk that you don't necessarily want. Focus on fresh food and food that will spoil. If you are constantly eating foods that are very shelf stable, you're always eating out of the pantry, these foods have probably been ultra processed or combined with something that is keeping them shelf stable. You want to try to eat foods with less ingredients, more whole foods, and more natural to the earth. And unfortunately, that means that these things spoil. So eat out of your fridge, eat off the counter, fruits that you have on the counter. Try not to always be eating out of the pantry. The second thing you want to do, especially if you like to cook, is to make sure you are cooking with stable fats. Let's go over some of the types of oils that you should be using if cooking at home. So if you are using low to medium heat, like some light sauteing, really lower smoke points, it's okay to use oils such as extra virgin olive oil or sesame oil, unrefined coconut oil, things like that. If you, though, are using higher temperatures, let's say you're frying something or you're just cooking at high heat, a really great oil to consider is avocado oil because the smoke point is very high, about 520 degrees Fahrenheit or 271 Celsius. So this is really good for a high heat method of cooking. It's got a pretty neutral flavor and it's rich in monounsaturated fats. You also, if you eat animal fats, could consider cooking with something like ghee. Ghee has a pretty high smoke point at about 485 degrees Fahrenheit. It does have a richer, buttery kind of flavor, and it does contain some fat-soluble vitamins. Could also consider cooking with something like refined coconut oil. This is going to have a smoke point of about 450 degrees Fahrenheit. So this one would be okay to use for high heat, but if you're using unrefined coconut oil, that would be better for the lower smoke points or low to medium heat cooking. The smoke point of unrefined coconut oil is about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you're using beef tallow peanut oil, those types of products have smoke points around 400 to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. So these would be other really good options. But again, from those, you are going to get some of the flavor of the oil into the food. But if you're cooking, you really want to try to avoid any type of standard vegetable oil blend. So that would be something like soy, corn, canola. They are definitely prone to oxidation under heat, and that's certainly something you want to avoid. These products oxidize very quickly. If you are going to use these seed oils in cooking, I would advise don't use them under any type of heat. For instance, maybe canola oil for a salad dressing or some kind of cold application, but I would not recommend heating these oils. Another thing you really can do to benefit your health overall is to boost your intake of those omega-3 fatty acids. So those would be found in things like fatty fish, flax seeds, chia seeds. Now, if you're eating flax seeds and chia seeds, make sure that you either buy them already ground or you grind them yourself so that you really release the full benefit of these products. Or you could even consider taking a fish oil supplement. This could help balance out those omega-6s to omega-3s. And of course, as I always say, read the labels, especially in things like dressings, dips, or snacks, because seed oils are oftentimes the first ingredient in these products. And if you're eating them often, then again, you're getting a lot of exposure to these omega-6s. But really try not to stress over perfection. Having these omega-6s every now and then is not going to make or break your health. So if you are buying mostly foods without seed oils, you are eating mostly fresh food, you are getting those omega-3s, it's not going to kill you to have some French fries every now and then or have a granola bar that might have some seed oils in it. Remember, everything in moderation, but just understand why seed oils have gotten the negative connotation that they have and how you can safely eat some seed oils in moderation. The solution here isn't fear, it's balance. Being aware of what you're eating, being aware of why some people are saying it's unhealthy, and educating yourself on how to potentially incorporate some of these foods, but in a safe way. Remember, the way we consume them in abundance, in deep fried foods, hidden and processed foods, these are what can contribute to metabolic dysfunction over time. Thanks for joining me today on the Wellness Protocol. If you learned something new, share this episode with a friend who's also been scared about seed oils and questioning what's real and what's not. And don't forget, health isn't about perfection. It's about patterns over time and lifestyle changes. You can always make exceptions here and there. See you next week on the Wellness Protocol.